Welcome back to Second and Short. It is Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. We are now 99 days from the beginning of the NFL season, and we are 87 days until week 0 of college football. Brock, are you excited?
I am beyond excited. There's nothing on TV to watch right now, and I cannot wait to have something to watch again.
Yeah, I've just been trying to watch as much baseball as possible to fill the void that has been left by just so long removed from college football.
Yeah.
It's been months since that championship game.
I know, and I mean, I love my Braves, and I loved watching my Ole Miss baseball play, but I need football again.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to live without. But regardless, there's always things happening. So let's start with college football. Over the weekend, some graphics have kind of taken over college football Twitter, and it's very hard to explain what they are. But I think I kind of get it. So just about every school is posting one of these, and it's kind of like a satirical graphic. It pokes fun at the graphics that all of these like athletic departments and football teams post. That's like recruiting bait kind of stuff, where it's just like, fun fact about us, we do this. But I absolutely love what we've seen from these. So I pulled up a few. The first one that I had seen, Brock had told me about, which was Ole Miss. Let's see. So yeah, there's tweeted by Lane Kiffin, says, okay, I got it pulled up. The only SEC school with a chevron that sells chicken on a stick. And Brock, I know you have a particular opinion about this one.
I mean, chicken on a stick, it's overhyped. I mean, everyone hopped on that Ed Orgeron train. It's good when you're drunk, but it's really just dried chicken.
Yeah. I haven't tried it. I would love to get out to Oxford to try it and see what the hype is about. See if it's all that Lane Kiffin is writing it out to be. But a few others. So Auburn, the only SEC school with a Buc-ee's. That's not a bad one.
That's how it started.
Yeah, I think South Carolina tried to refute that one because I think they have a Buc-ee's like relatively close. But tons and tons of these. Michigan, the only Big Ten school with a head coach that mows his own lawn. That's a great one. And in the picture is, like, this graphic is hilarious. You have Ryan Day's face right in front of the lawnmower. Obviously, this one wasn't put out by official Michigan, but one of like the fan pages. And then
I like the Memphis one.
Yeah, there's so many. Marshall, this was one of the first ones I saw as well. The only school in the country with a original Tudor's Biscuit World. I have no idea what that is, but I'm sure it's good.
Yeah, I want to try it.
So a lot of them have like this small text at the bottom. Let's see. This one says, Huntington is home to one of Tudor's original locations. Everyone's favorite is the, what does this say? Ron? I think it says Ron Biscuit. I have no idea what this is, but I thought this was a funny one to point out because I'm sure nobody else has one of these.
Yeah.
I don't think I can argue with this one from Marshall. App State, the only school in the country with a double-decker Wendy's. That's elite.
I want to go try that out now.
Yeah, I want to eat upstairs at Wendy's.
Yeah. However, you won't catch me dead in Boone, North Carolina.
Fair enough. It's going to be hard to go to that Wendy's. Let's see, Texas Tech had a good one as well. The only Big 12 school with a, something about Prairie Dog Town. And it even has a mayor.
Let's go.
That one's pretty solid. I don't think anybody's going to try and beat that one. I don't think anybody's going to be racing to get Prairie Dog Town near their campus. Let's see. What else? Oklahoma State, the only Big 12 school with sweet pepper bacon cheese fries. I don't know about this. That could be somewhere else.
Yeah,
I think that one could be disputed. Let's see. Arizona football had a solid one as well. The only school in the Pac-12 with a dinosaur outside of a McDonald's.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy one to...
If I was a recruit, I'm That's gonna make me at least take a visit.
Oh, 100%. Get my pictures in the uniform outside the dinosaur.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I want my photo shoot. I don't care about your little special like photo room.
Yeah.
Or your backdrops, whatever. Get me in full pads and put me in front of that dinosaur at the McDonald's and take my picture.
Yeah, I don't care that y'all are the wolf pack or whatever. Like, we're the dinosaurs.
I think they're
now.
the Wildcats.
I don't know.
Arizona?
There's something.
Yeah, they're the Wildcats. Let's see. So, yeah, South Carolina, the only school in the country who claimed the closest Bojangles and Waffle House to their stadium.
All right.
That's not a bad pull. That's certainly something I'd be looking forward to.
Right after the game.
Memphis, of course. I could have guessed that this is what Memphis was going to be. The only school with a Bass Pro Shops in a pyramid. The eighth wonder of the world, the Bass Pro Shop pyramid.
I also think it's like one of the largest pyramids in the world too, which is just so funny to me.
Gotta be. It's like Bass Pro Shops and then Giza.
100%, yeah.
Let's see, who else had one? USF, the only school with an on-campus Publix.
Yes.
That's solid.
Dude, pub subs for days.
So I'm surprised. Maybe they did post one, I just didn't see it. It was Kentucky, because they have the big blue Kroger, and it is a full decked-out University of Kentucky Kroger. It's also has parking on the roof.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I visited that one. It's interesting. Like, everything in there is Kentucky.
That's actually pretty cool.
Fantastic.
Now, do you think the Publix at the USF, you can use like your meal swipes and stuff there?
That would be fantastic.
Dude,
I would certainly have a meal.
I would have pub subs every day.
Yeah. Oh, I already do. And I don't have a Publix on campus. Like, if I had the option to do meal swipes for a pub sub,
yeah,
oh my
you know
God.
where I'd be.
Yeah. At this point, the lady in the Publix by KSU, she knows my name. She is very nice, and she always says hello to me when I come in to pick up my sub.
Very nice lady.
And, yeah, I don't know which one's my favorite, though. I think Arizona, in my mind, wins. A dinosaur outside of a McDonald's.
Just the fact that it's a
illustrious.
dinosaur just wins.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs are dope.
Yeah.
I don't care how old I am.
I don't even think it needed to be at McDonald's.
It could literally been in a random field.
It makes it a whole lot better than it is in front of a McDonald's.
Kind of checks out for Arizona.
That's true. Weird folks out there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's actually talk football now. It appears that the SEC is going to just keep holding on to this 8-game conference schedule, and it looks like they're not going to readdress this until possibly 2026. It seems like people are urging them to go to a 9-game schedule, but do you think this is an urgent problem?
I definitely don't think it's an urgent problem. However, I do wish they would do that, or at the very least, if they're not going to do a 9-game schedule, force every team to have 8 SEC games and 1 Power 5 team every year.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I know, like, I think with the SEC is, like, if they can just continue to do these 8-game schedules and it's not like ESPN, because it looks like right now ESPN isn't incentivizing them to add another conference game or add a big game to their schedule. So if they're not going to give us more money for it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes to like, all right, you put another SEC game in there. Now you have 9. That's more of a chance for a team of yours to lose and look worse for the playoffs. Yeah. So why would you do that?
Exactly. It makes it a harder road, and we are very well aware, we talked about it right before the episode, that the SEC gets the championships.
Oh, yeah.
So putting anything in their way makes no sense to them.
Yeah, and then on top of it, it's like every year when the SEC are ready at 8 games, about half of the SEC, if not more, always ranks in the top 15 of the hardest schedule in the nation. And then usually about 10 or 11 of the SEC is in the top 25 of the hardest schedule in the nation. And then the rest are in the top 35.
Yeah.
So already having all of them having the toughest schedules in the nation, and then you want to put on another SEC game, then it's going to be the top, we'll have 16. So the top 16 are going to be all SEC. And it would just be unfair at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the point in, it seems like them adding a 9th game is just them trying to get, like, the top of the East to play the top of the West every year.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. Georgia and Alabama don't want to put each other on their schedules.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that's not going to happen. because they both know, with their best interests in mind, the only time we should match up is the SEC championship game.
Yeah, and that makes the most sense because why would you want to go in already playing once before
Yep.
and then having to risk it again? It's just not worth it. Although I would like to see more games like Ole Miss versus Tennessee, Georgia versus LSU, Florida versus, I guess Florida and LSU play every year, but like more cross division.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun. I think like there are a lot of rivalries that start like Ole Miss versus Tennessee would be a great game. Everyone I think would draw a big crowd every year.
It'd be like the Manning Bowl.
Yeah, and then you have like I think like South Carolina versus Arkansas. They're about the same skill. That would be a really fun game to watch every year too.
Yeah, I think they're on a very similar level. But I do want to ask you about this because of this 8-game schedule and talking about interdivision play. Are you a fan of them possibly getting rid of the divisions? Because it seems like the SEC is the only one that is for sure going to stick with it at the moment.
I like divisions because it just kind of makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of that pod thing.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
I'm not a fan of that at all. I think that's stupid. I would rather, if they're going to do anything, just stick with the half and half. And it's just hard to regulate, who's going to be on which side and know who's going to be good which season and what, because it does change.
Yeah, because like already with the introduction of Oklahoma and Texas, we don't really know who's going to move to the East.
Mm-hmm.
So are they going to move anybody to the East, or are they just going to get rid of the divisions? Because it could happen, but geographically, I think the one that would make sense to move to the East is Auburn. They're kind of the next one over. So it would be kind of their only solution, because you can't really bring over like anybody past Alabama, because that's all the West. Like you can't have Ole Miss or Mississippi State in the East and then still have Alabama and Auburn in the West, just because you want to preserve a rivalry.
See, I thought about that. You could maybe even do they could change this north-south even.
Yeah, they could. It would really shake things up.
It would really shake it up, but I mean, just put a line. You could do it all around, but having LSU,
I think the South would be.
The South would still be
the South would be
hard.
Way better, because.
But if you were to keep Alabama, Georgia separated.
Yeah, I think you could, but still the North would end up. They would just take Arkansas.
Yeah.
Possibly Ole Miss.
Yeah, or you could do that.
Because you'd kind of just split up each state. Because, Alabama... Well, I guess Alabama is in the north of Alabama, and Auburn is in the south side of Alabama. So maybe you split those two, but once again, you run into that same issue.
It's because, it's like already, the SEC West is still the hardest division in college football. Yes. And like you said, the SEC is just such a powerhouse. There's just not too much you can do to make it even.
Yeah, exactly. I think... But then again, the only way of making it even is getting rid of the divisions.
Yeah. And then, if you run into that, I think that would be more of you'd have the same teams. I mean, as if we don't already have the same teams every year. But I feel like without it, there's a little more competition, because it's like, I don't know. It's just, it runs through the whole thing.
It keeps teams in it. Because, let's say you're a team that if there was no divisions, you're like locked up for 4th place.
True.
But you have the opportunity to win the SEC East just because, LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss or whatever are at the top.
Yeah.
And, let's just all hypothetical, Georgia's in 4th, they would win the East. Like, it does, keep teams in it in certain divisions, but then on the other side, it's like, okay, well, these 3 teams have it, we're done.
I'm very intrigued to see if they do decide to get rid of the divisions, how it would... I just lost my train of thought. How it would, oh, dear God. What was I about to say?
Scheduling.
Yes, how they would do the scheduling. Because, you want to keep those rivalries like LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, even though there's one between Arkansas and Ole Miss, kind of. You want to keep those games, but at the same time, and everyone loves to play, you like Ole Miss, LSU, that's a rivalry. You had to play that every year. Yep. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, that's a rivalry. You had to play that every year. And then I guess there's also the Ole Miss Vanderbilt. It used to be more of a rivalry, and there's a lot of meaning behind that game. However, that's something both teams enjoy to play every year. It's like,
Yeah, I think it's hard, especially to go no divisions when you're about to have 16 teams.
Yeah.
Because that means, you can't play a 15-game schedule.
Yeah.
So you're going to be leaving 3 teams out of your schedule at the very least,
Mhm.
because that would be saying that you're not going to play anybody outside of your conference, which isn't going to be the case. So most likely, you're leaving, 5, 6 teams off of your schedule just so that you can play out of your conference. And yeah, like every year, no matter what, whether there's divisions or not, you're gonna play. You're not gonna play every single team in your
Yeah.
conference. But I think that maybe if they did take away the conferences, the SEC teams would be more willing to move to the 9 games instead of 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's talk about what Nebraska's president said. Ted Carter. He said that Nebraska wants to be a leader when college athletes are directly paid by schools. So this is just a weird way to start this, because I think me and you have talked about this multiple times now, that directly paying them makes it very interesting. It definitely changes how the sport will be played and how recruiting works. But I think it's weird to kind of come out and say this, because you would be somebody that's pretty tapped in on what is happening in, college football and with the NCAA, and saying that, when that happens, you want to be a part, like you want to be a leader, you want to be a part of it. I feel like this is kind of saying that this is a conversation in the NCAA.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked about it beforehand. The NCAA just let it loose, and they're trying to fix everything now. They were just saying, hey, let's see what happens. And now, it's just a greased up pig running around that no one can catch.
Yeah.
Everyone, they don't know what to do, how to do it, and there are so many different ways to go about it. And so I think it's going to be a while, probably a few more years before they finally make a decision of what they want to do. And I don't know. I just don't like the school directly paying.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. But to go further with what Nebraska's president said, he said that the NCAA may not be capable of leading with all the changes coming to college athletics. And I think he's right. I think we've already seen it.
Yeah.
With the introduction of NIL through the NCAA, it's already changed a lot of things, and it doesn't seem like they have a full grasp on how to regulate it and how to take care of these athletes. And it's really showing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's right here saying that they're not capable of leading, but I don't think anybody's leaving the NCAA. Like, that's not going to happen. We're not forming a professional league with owners and things for college football. That's not how that's ever going to work, because they need some kind of governing body outside of just the, owners or presidents of these universities.
Yeah, and I do not think, at the end of the day, these sports are for these institutions of higher education.
Yeah.
They should not be worried about paying these players and all that. I think that should all just be like kind of like the third party we talked about a few weeks ago. You hire a completely separate entity that is the GM and people like that, and they take care of it through the sports, and that should be separate from the school. And I think, like I just said, the NCAA released this like a greased up pig, and no one knows how to catch it, what to do with it, and now you're in this whole kerfuffle.
Yeah, it's definitely caused plenty of problems, and I think what makes this more interesting is what Ted Carter said after this, saying that Congress shouldn't get involved in NIL. I think that, yeah, it makes sense for them not to be involved, but if you're going to say that the NCAA can't lead it, and then you're going to say that, the government that runs all of these universities, at least a majority of them, shouldn't be involved in how the athletes that are students of the universities that are part of this government can't be regulated by Congress, makes it very much seem like you're just trying to create a college football league.
Yeah.
That is entirely separate from the roots of college football and what it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, I don't know if that's really a possibility. I don't think that could happen. It becomes this idea of like club teams almost forming a professional sports league.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Every time I talk about it, there's just so much I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
So I think right now we're gonna have to keep going with what we have. And as I said a few weeks ago, I think they should have started with way more regulations and rules, and then slowly, pull back a couple of things that were a little extreme. Oh, we'll pull it back
Yeah.
until you get to what's right. They just let it loose, no rules at all, and that's where all the problems came in.
Yeah, and of course they did.
Mhm.
I think everybody kind of saw it being I think going into it, we thought it would have been more regulated. We
Yeah.
didn't think that, the day that it's announced, like this guy gets $1 million and this
Hmm.
guy gets $1 million. Like we didn't see that coming whatsoever. But now it's just become the reality of NIL and the reality of NCAA athletics. And I think that the way that it's all been handled is rather poor,
Hmm.
at least from the NCAA. And but at the same time, I think that athletes and I think that like schools with their collectives and things like that have done a fantastic job of doing it by using their resources.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
But let's talk about this. This stuff is very interesting. So, Florida and Georgia extended their annual game in Jacksonville by 2 more years, so through 2025. Do you think that this rivalry game should always be played in Jacksonville?
I mean, it's been played in Jacksonville since its inception.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I like the idea of it down there. It brings a lot of money to the local economy. I mean, there's a lot of good things it does. It's Jacksonville is literally on the line of Georgia and Florida. It's a fun place to go. It's a little trip for everybody. I like the idea of it still being in Jacksonville. I like a good neutral site game.
Yes, I do. And we've talked about how, this isn't exactly a neutral site because Jacksonville is wildly closer to Gainesville than Athens
Hmm.
or even just the metro Atlanta area that has so many Georgia fans that would travel down there. But I do think that Jacksonville is the home of that rivalry, and it almost garners to what that rivalry means.
Hmm.
It's just a ton of people traveling in from out of town, and it's just it's a pretty good split.
Yeah,
It's a pretty good split of Florida and Georgia.
and I think they do a great job of that down there. Of you know, this side is Florida,
Yes.
this side's Georgia. Keeping it like that. And I love it because it is that's like to me like college football at its core.
Yes.
A great rivalry between two usually great teams, historically good teams, just having it out and I don't know, and the fans that come down for the experience the weekend.
Yeah.
Georgia gives off Thursday, Friday, and Monday of that. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Now I think they should keep it down there. It is good for college football.
Yeah. I certainly agree. But just to kind of continue this conversation, we'll start here. Paul Feinbaum said that Florida State is not nearly as attractive as they think they are regarding a move to the SEC.
See, I think Florida State would be more attractive than Oklahoma or Texas.
I don't know about Texas,
Yeah, okay, I do take
just
that back.
because Texas is such a powerhouse financially.
Yeah, they make over $1 billion
Yeah,
in football.
Oklahoma is certainly a storied program, and they have a rich history. But Florida State, I feel like, has been bigger in the grand scheme of college football history. I think that the teams led by Bobby Bowden and
Hmm.
the 2013 team with Jimbo Fisher, like this this is one of the mainstays of college football. All
Yeah,
time has always been there, will always be talked about. Even when we have been so bad for the last couple of years, we're still getting talked about by everyone. It's
yeah,
always like, oh well, like yeah, they suck, but this player is very good. Like this is a first round guy. Like there's always people coming out, and I feel like Oklahoma has missed on that plenty of times.
hmm,
And I think that Florida State as a program and as a fan base as well is much bigger for the SEC than what Oklahoma's going to bring.
I agree. I think you're right there, and I think old Feinbaum said that just to get a little attention, and whatnot.
Yeah, but he's also just an SEC through and through guy,
Yeah,
so I don't blame him.
and I think he knows that like Florida State's not going to leave the ACC.
No.
there would be no point in it. They'd make a little more money outside of it, but why would you want to potentially go against the SEC schedule when you can stay in the ACC,
Yep.
cruise to the top usually, and only had to play a Clemson, a Clemson team that could be good, that could be okay, mediocre, whatever. Same with Miami and a few other ones. Like, why would you want to leave that?
Yeah, exactly. But to tie these last two talking points together, a guy went on Reddit, asked this question. I think it's a dumb question, personally. But he said, does the UGA versus Florida rivalry survive if Florida State joins the SEC?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Florida State and Florida already play annually.
Exactly. Like, yes, it will make the Florida State-Florida rivalry bigger than what it is now, but I don't think anything could ever change the Georgia versus Florida rivalry.
No, Georgia Florida is that's a very dumb question, especially because Georgia fans we know several are all diehard crazy. Same with many Florida fans. Nothing's gonna change that rivalry. It is a storied rivalry. It is, dumb question.
Yeah, like both of these rivalries have their place in college football history, but there's plenty of teams that play two huge rivalry games a year. Georgia themselves do. Like, Georgia Tech's hasn't been good in a long time.
Yeah.
It's still a historic rivalry game. Alabama plays Auburn and Tennessee. Those are historic rivalry games. Like, tons and tons of Florida State themselves play two historic rivalry games between them and Miami and with Florida. So I don't understand, what these people were going at with this question, because I don't think it changes anything. I just think it makes Florida State versus FSU a little more interesting than it already was.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't even say that it's a bigger rivalry game in the SEC than UGA versus UF.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the most I'd come Florida State coming in would be another big rivalry.
Yeah.
They would just get just start a rivalry with someone else, like LSU or Alabama, Auburn, something like that,
Yeah, I certainly agree. Let's talk about this real quick. Tennessee has sold out the entire allotment of season tickets for only the second time in the past 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 70,500 season tickets have been sold by Tennessee. That's all of them. And I think that people are finally starting to see that, this Tennessee team is for real. Even though they lost a bunch of guys to the draft this year, there's certainly a hype around Tennessee going into 2023 that they're going to be right back where they were.
Yeah, I think Happel's got them on a great path, and he will continue to lead them to excellence and potentially a win over Georgia for the first time in several years. And he's getting the recruits. He's doing everything he needs to do. So Tennessee fans are finally able to believe again.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see another good team to challenge Georgia right now in the SEC East, because we've seen Florida and Georgia, and we've seen Florida dominate it themselves. We've seen Tennessee do it years ago. We've obviously seen Georgia do it recently, but I think that a lot of things change, especially if UF can get back on their feet. Like, the way that the East will look if a couple of these teams kind of get their shit together could be fantastic. And I think Tennessee, seeing how much their fans are ready for this program to kind of get back on track, I think it bodes well for the future of the SEC East.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, I really think Florida's starting to pull it around.
Yeah.
And Tennessee pulling it out. South Carolina, I mean, it's really looking good for the entirety of the SEC. Everything that's going on right now. So it is a great time to be an SEC fan.
Yeah. And just to keep it with Tennessee, former UCF and FSU quarterback Mackenzie Milton has joined Tennessee as an offensive analyst. So he's joining his former head coach at UCF, Josh Heupel, on his staff. I think this is great. I think Mackenzie Milton is a fantastic mind in football. He obviously had it. When he was at UCF, he was a fantastic quarterback. And then obviously that horrible injury happened. But even when he was on the field for Florida State, you could tell that this kid knew what he was doing. He understood the offense. He was able to adapt to an entirely different offense while also having to relearn how to walk. He is a very smart guy, and he understands football very well. So I'm glad to see him getting a job, and hopefully we see him move up quickly because he's still pretty young.
And he probably will. I mean, especially some with his experience and everything he's been through. A big thing in coaching is your story and getting people to believe you. And I fully believe he'll be able to get people to believe in him and trust him, and he will have success.
Yeah, certainly. So this was an interesting article that I saw written over the weekend. I believe is when it came out. This one coming from Sports Illustrated, written by Ross Dellinger, who's a very popular reporter for college football. And this is an interesting one. It looks like there's some very weird stuff happening with NIL in the split of kind of the boosters and the foundations that fund athletics at universities and NIL collectives.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that it's being done right now is the foundations that are funding athletics, which pay the coaches and pay for facilities and things like that, those people are at odds with NIL collectives because it's not really the same people putting this money towards each other. And it could lead to some very bad things in the future. If these two can't get on the same page, what if a bunch of big money guys flip from donating to the foundations and start donating to the collective, and then now all of a sudden, we can't pay this coach that much, or we can't pay for these new facilities because now we're paying these players this much more. Like right now, the average college football player, I believe that's just in the SEC, is making somewhere from $10,000 to $50,000 a year from NIL, just from the collectives.
Mm-hmm.
And the Grove Collective, a huge one that a pretty good amount, and I think just about every other SEC school probably has a collective as well. But I just think that it's weird because the foundations function through the university.
Mm-hmm.
NIL collectives don't. They're a complete separate entity from the NCAA. They don't do anything on NCAA grounds technically. They don't function from there, but the foundations do. They have offices in a facility, and these two theoretically can't come together if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because that would mean that the university is paying the athletes, and that's not what NIL is about. So, do you think that this could cause problems down the road? Do you think that, having the foundations separate from these NIL collectives could cause issues down the road for, either side?
Well, I think this goes back to kind of what we were saying is you need to have since they are allowing paying the players, you need to have basically GM and the finance people and just say, hey, all the money for everything goes through here and all of that. I also think that most people who are donating to athletic foundations are going to continue to donate to the athletic foundations because they know, they know where their money's going to. They know all of that. They know what it's going to be. They know, if I give $1 million, it's going straight to this project that is building brand new locker rooms. It's going to be called the Brock Garland locker room, whatever it is. So I think there are those incentives of these people have these money, they're going to want to continue to donate to the athletic foundations. But I do agree it may start causing issues, especially at places like Texas A&M, and they're not going to be able to get even with all these great facilities, they're not going to get these players who's getting outbid from Texas and other Texas schools or Alabama, other schools around the country. So I think in certain places it's going to be a bigger issue than others.
Yeah, and another big issue with this is differing legislation in different states. Certain states you can do things that you can't quite do in other ones, and I know there's things passing left and right. I know Arkansas just had some, Oklahoma as well, and I think Missouri is the most lenient. I think Missouri, you can just about do everything except pay for play. That is exactly what it's boiled down to now in Missouri with college athletes is you can literally give them money for fucking anything at this point, but it just can't come from the university's pocket. And I think that, the big discrepancy here now is that there are schools that are in different states that can't do that. Georgia hasn't, Florida doesn't, Alabama doesn't. They don't have the ability to pay players at the same standards of other states, even just within their conference. And I think that causes a lot of issues.
Yeah. I wonder to what extent will it be the conferences start to regulate, okay, this is unfair that Texas A&M can get a booster to come in and give $1 million in cash to a
Yep.
kid, but over in Vanderbilt, they're not allowed to, they can't even, do whatever. And the SEC decides to step and say, all right, here are the rules. You can donate directly to the athletic fund or the collective and, do all these things, and it has to be dispersed among whatever it may be and all of those things.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of the next step in what kind of we were talking about. The Nebraska president was talking about where, you know, the NCAA can't handle these things.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And, with, state governments getting involved now, it really changes kind of what we view NIL as, because now it's something where I think one of the states I'd read, in this article, I can't quite remember which state it is, but as soon as you have committed in high school, you can start receiving NIL money in that state.
Interesting.
And that is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think they need to come out and say, like we were saying, they're taking too long to take action, and that's why all these people are starting to lose faith in the NCAA. Because I think that's a little crazy too. I don't think a high schooler should be able to make that money and do all that. Once you get on the university's campus and you're the university's problem, then they can start dealing with you and all that. But I guess you can make the argument. I'm pretty sure that. Well, no, you don't think do that. So I'll retract what I was gonna say there.
Yeah. So just to fact check myself again, it was Missouri. That you were able to earn compensation for your name, image, and likeness before enrolling at the school.
Wow.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that really changes things, because that comes to a point where it's like, okay, this is where we get the commit to us and you get this money.
Yeah.
That is exactly what that is.
Well, that's
because it's like, before, it's like, it's not like commit to us and get on campus.
Mhm.
It's like, sign your letter of intent. Here's an NIL deal for, $20,000.
Well, and that's so dumb, because then you run into the issues like you did with Rashada at Florida, and that's gonna start happening way more. And
But it's really gonna hurt you as a school,
Mhm.
because you've already given them the money.
Yeah.
Rashada wasn't gonna get the money until he was on campus.
yeah,
So you're gonna give this money to this 17 or 18-year-old that signed to you, but you don't even know. He can step back.
Mhm.
You can rescind a letter of intent,
yeah,
and that makes it so much more risky to be sending these guys money.
Well, I also think this is going to be a bigger issue for the kids, because that's going to end up being a whole legal battle, probably. Oh, we've given you $30,000 already. All right, you send your letter of intent. All right, everything, we need that $30,000 back now.
Yeah.
It was only valid through the paperwork. You probably didn't have a lawyer or anything look through. In very small print says, if you rescind your letter, you lose all this money, you have to pay us back in full. And for all they know, that these kids, they're 17, 18 years old, probably won't make the best decision with this money, and where they get the money from to pay back these schools.
Yeah.
So you're gonna run into all these issues.
Yeah, and one of the minor details from that Missouri thing is that the student that can receive the NIL money after signing a letter of intent has to be to an in-state school.
Okay.
So if other states start passing this, like let's say Georgia, a state that has a lot of athletes that go to the schools in that state, that means that tons and tons of recruits going to Georgia or Georgia Tech could sign a letter of intent and immediately start getting NIL deals before they even get on campus. Because you can sign them kind of whenever, right?
Yeah,
after your sophomore year.
I believe once your sophomore year's over, you're allowed to sign.
So you could have a junior in high school signed to Georgia. Yeah, he's going to be a highly touted prospect, whatever. But he's 16 years old, and you're about to give him maybe enough money to go buy himself a car.
Yeah. And these kids are way too young to be getting that much money.
They are. Because I'll tell you what, end of my sophomore year, if I got that kind of money, just thrown at me.
Yeah.
Just because I signed with your school. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck.
I wouldn't be going to school at that point.
Yeah.
I would be like, look at me. I would be showing up the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Hell, I wouldn't even be playing football. I'd just be like coming to practice. Oh, I don't need to,
Yeah.
And there's just so many problems that go with it. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I'm not either. But I think that's going to do it for the college football conversation. Let's talk a little bit of NFL. So we're now officially closer to the NFL season starting than when the last Super Bowl was played.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Last Super Bowl obviously being played in February. We are just a day away as you're listening from June, which is crazy.
Whew.
We're flying. We're flying through. Only got really like just about 3 months now until college football gets started, but the NFL season quickly approaching and a lot of things are happening. So we'll start here. DeAndre Hopkins was released by the Arizona Cardinals, but the interesting part of this is because they did this at this point in this offseason, they're going to be taking the full cap hit on DeAndre Hopkins. So $22.6 million in dead cap they're going to have to pay next year.
Wow.
And this move right here makes it pretty obvious that the Cardinals are tanking.
Oh, 100% makes it blatantly obvious they're tanking.
Yeah, and who knows to what extent they will tank, but right now I got a feeling they're going to have the number 1 overall pick next year. They might have another one up at the top because they have Houston's pick next year, and who knows how Houston's going to be. But I think with this, it is very, very interesting for the Cardinals. Do we see Kyler Murray leave, pretty soon? Because he's kind of getting to the point where they could trade him. He's getting a little bit later into that contract extension they gave him. There's the possibilities of him getting traded. But, what are the Cardinals looking to do with this? Because there's a lot of things that could happen.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame them for wanting to trade him, get a couple more early round picks and a few drafts, pick up Caleb Williams first overall or Drake May, one of them. I mean, Kyler Murray is good, but I've never really been too high on him. He's a good quarterback and all, but I think if you could get Caleb Williams or Drake May, 2 quarterbacks who definitely have potential to be the next big thing, I wouldn't want to pass up on that.
No, I wouldn't either, and I think that's why tanking kind of makes sense for the Cardinals. They're in a horrible spot right now.
Yeah.
Because just a couple of years ago, they're playing in the playoffs. They have a great team. DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, Kyler Murray, all these guys were playing very, very good football. And all of a sudden, they've hit this wall. Really last season. And now it just seems like everything's falling apart. Cliff is gone and everything is just changing around that facility. So I think that, the changes they're making are warranted, but it's such an interesting fall from grace that we've seen.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing with Kyler Murray is they brought him in with Cliff, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the other thing is they'll probably end up trading him because he was brought in to be Cliff's quarterback, be the big thing. They made it into the playoffs that first season with him, or second season, whatever it was. But it was definitely very interesting. I'm gonna be very intrigued to see what they do because I would definitely trade him, try to get rid of some of that big money they gave him, and get a couple good picks for him. Get Caleb Williams and just build up my team.
Yeah,
new coach, new everything, just fresh start.
Yeah, I think that's probably the route they're taking.
Yeah.
At this point, if you've got the first pick next year and you don't take a quarterback, that's kind of surprising because it seems like at the moment right now the consensus is that this is going to be a quarterback-heavy draft.
Yep.
And we're probably not going to see. Yeah, we'll probably see some top-tier defensive players, but maybe not some that are worth a first overall pick over a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, whoever else. Even Joe Milton, I'm hearing things about him being like a top 10 pick.
I mean, insane arm talent.
Truly, we saw it at the Barstool office.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that there is some interesting discussions to be had about what's happening with the Cardinals, but also what's happening with DeAndre Hopkins because he's going to play on a team. Yes, he's 30 years old. He's also got the most receptions at any point, or he's got the most receptions through their age 30 in NFL history.
Wow.
So he's definitely a guy that you still want on the roster.
Yeah.
And he's going to cost you some money, but there's a lot of teams that could use him. There's a lot of teams that could use an elite number one wide receiver. Obviously, the Chiefs have been the talk, but the money's kind of an issue in Kansas City. And I think the Bills are another one that possibly could go after a wide receiver, but I'm not a fan of that move. I think the Jets are a possibility, but they've kind of loaded the wide receivers as well.
Yeah.
I've seen kind of the Falcons being a long shot, the Panthers as well. There's just about every team might as well inquire.
Oh, yeah.
See what he's thinking money-wise, see what they can do, but I really don't know what team he's going to end up on.
Yeah. He could really go anywhere, and I don't think and it's not going to be a super long deal. Like you said, he's 35. So I think you maybe get 2-3 years out of him. Maybe. And then, that of his still superstardom, probably being a solid receiver. So, yeah, I'm very intrigued because, like you said, he really could go anywhere.
Yeah, he certainly could, and he's got the option because of his talent. And I think that makes it way more interesting because every team could use a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, no matter what. Even the Raiders, who already have Devontae Adams, could use DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there's some insane potential, so it's going to be something I'm definitely following closely, trying to see, the rumors, see who's talking to him, see what's up. But let's talk about this because just a couple of weeks ago, we were sitting in this exact same spot talking about the Lions having some players get suspended, and look at it. The NFL is investigating a fifth player from that Lions roster last year for a potential violation of the league's gambling policy. This is just like, when is it going to end? When are they just going to... I still think it's kind of the NFL's fault at this point, especially after what Jameson Williams was asked. So he was at Lions Open OTAs, spoke to reporters, said that he didn't know the league's gambling rules and that he doesn't know when he violated it. So it makes this a whole lot different because you'd think the NFL would be sending around, rules compliance officers to speak to these teams, let them know about these rules, because Jameson Williams was a rookie last year. If nobody told him, then the Lions and the NFL together did not do their job correctly in setting this young player up for success.
Yeah. You got to tell them. They got to know the rules. I just think the gambling rules are very dumb. However, I understand them. But it's one of those, it's like,
Yeah, well, when it's become such a big part of your sport, especially, the reemergence of sports betting within these last couple of years with the legalization, it's obviously made it very difficult for professional sports leagues.
Yeah.
But if you can set down very obvious and very useful guidelines for what these players and staff can and cannot do, it makes your life a whole lot easier. And if the NFL isn't laying down these rules in the proper way, or at least the roster, these franchises aren't laying down these rules in the proper way, you're not just fucking the players over, you're fucking yourself over in this situation.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to miss out on 6 games of Jameson Williams, who we already missed out on almost a full season of him last year. And it just seems like they're beating themselves up with these rules that it seems like they're not properly telling people about.
Yeah, you would think that when you get drafted and you sign your paperwork, all your contract, all that, it would be like, okay, here are the most basic rules you'll have to follow. You can't do this. You can't gamble on your own team. You can't do this, that, the other, whatever it may be. It's like an orientation process.
Yeah, there certainly should be, or even just the whole rookie class. Every single franchise should at least have to get together their rookies every year and present them the rules. Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is something that the NFL has done wrong. I think they've handled this improperly. Obviously, suspensions make sense. They broke a rule. But, if I break a rule and I don't know what the rule is, I'm assuming I didn't break a rule.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be pretty mad if I get punished for it.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And you're stopping this guy from doing his job because of it.
So I wonder if, any of these could become a legal case or anything like that. I mean, there's not enough grounds for it, but
yeah,
almost just being like, hey, you do not I was never given the proper instruction, proper whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You were and not letting me do my job, make a living, whatever, and just say, hey, like, let's figure this out.
Yeah. I think the tough part is that their employer is their team.
Yeah.
And not the NFL. The NFL is just a governing body over their team. So I don't think they would have the grounds to sue the NFL exactly on this.
Yeah.
But if they could certainly have the grounds to sue their employer, which is the franchise they play for.
Yeah, and even if it's just like if they can just get the basis for the NFL to come like, all right, we're gonna make a rule for league wide. You have to have a 3-day class, and all your rookies must attend every year that states all the rules and procedures we have.
Yeah, it should be no different than somebody getting a job somewhere and they have to do mandatory OSHA training stuff. Like just about everybody has to do that with every job, and you have to do sexual harassment training. Like all these different trainings that you have to do as part of your onboarding should be a part of NFL teams.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Because it is a business and they are their employer. This is their job. And the fact that you're not properly preparing these people for their job is a bad reflection on you and is really hurting you more than that.
Yeah.
This is just wild. Le'Veon Bell, he said on the Steel Here podcast, obviously a Steelers podcast, that he smoked weed before NFL games. He said, I'd smoke and I'd go out there and run for 150 for 2 touchdowns. God damn it, man. Why? Why'd you have to come out here and say it? Because now
every running back has a good game.
Yep.
The next day, hey, you're being subjected to a random drug test.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be like, you look too chill on the field. It's just like Le'Veon just can't help himself, man. He already got busted for it.
Yeah.
So I get coming out and saying it now that you're not playing, but that's insane that he was just smoking before games.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Le'Veon Bell is such a character. I'll be honest. He is so entertaining.
The Steelers had a few on that roster.
Yeah, they sure did. A couple of interesting fellas.
Yes.
God. But let's talk about some news I was very excited to see. Brock Purdy is expected to resume throwing this week. Puts him just a few weeks ahead of schedule and could bring him back fully for training camp. This is a fantastic sign for Brock Purdy because I was kind of worried that if he missed training camp that Trey Lance would have his job.
Yeah.
At least, in the beginning of the time that he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at this point now, I think it's getting safer to say that Brock Purdy will be back for the beginning of the season and most likely 100% for it. And, hopefully we get to see the same guy we saw last year.
Yeah, and I still think that there is a bit of a quarterback competition between them because Trey Lance was, a top 10 pick?
He was top 5.
Yeah. Big time pick. Brock Purdy obviously had a good season, really good season. Well, but he was, in the grand scheme of things, not considered as talented. And so, I think this will be an interesting offseason, and potentially whoever becomes the starter, the other one I could see possibly getting traded.
I don't know about traded just for depth purposes.
Yeah.
But they're certainly going to be interested in it because they're both 2 talented quarterbacks. Obviously, we haven't seen Trey Lance really do it on the field, but Brock Purdy, we have seen him be a very, very good player. And I think that they both have reasons to be a starter on an NFL team. So if you do bench one of these guys, it's going to be hard to keep the other around.
Yeah, I agree.
But I want to get your take on this because I think this is an interesting move. The Saints brought John Gruden in, flew him into New Orleans to kind of pick his brain on their new offense with Derek Carr. So obviously John Gruden being his former head coach in Oakland and Vegas. But I don't know how I feel about this move. I think it makes sense, former coach and, getting just kind of his idea on what he thinks Derek Carr's strengths are and,
Hmm.
what kind of offense he runs best in. But at the same time, don't you think that this should be more about getting your offensive coaches together and, your head coach as well and figuring out what works best with Derek Carr, not
Yeah.
asking a former coach what he thinks best?
Yeah, I find that very interesting. They didn't just have their offensive staff together say, "Hey, this is what we want. This is what we
Yeah.
think. This is what we see. I've seen in previous film with him. This is what we're running. This is how we think it's going to work with him." That's very interesting. They decided to bring in, and maybe they said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think? Like you've been with him for several years. What obviously they had a good relation, or not? They had a relationship, whether good or bad. They had a long relationship together, head coach, and player for several years. So it makes sense of why they wanted to ask him, but I agree with you. It's very weird they brought in a previous coach that's got nothing to do with their team in to ask questions about.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it could also have just been like outside of just the offense, kind of trying to hear somebody else's perspective on the kind of player and the kind of person that Derek
Yeah.
Carr is. Obviously, we know kind of who Derek Carr is at this point in his career, but getting a coach's perspective of what he saw from him and what he saw, in the best and in the worst of Derek Carr, what he really thinks he brings to this team. And I get that perspective, but I think there's other, avenues of finding that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree with you there.
This one, it's just kind of sad to see. Andy Reid went out and said that the fullback as a position is being eased out of the NFL. And I hate that. I
do
think that
too.
the fullback is such a fun way to
Mhm.
run an offense. Like,
Yeah.
seeing guys, even the Chiefs have done it with Andy Reid at head coach, with Anthony Sherman and Kyle Juszczyk for the 49ers, just so Patrick Ricard for the Ravens. Like, using a fullback has been a big part of the NFL and like the history of the NFL. Having
It's
that
football in
strong,
general.
yeah, that strong downhill runner, like just can block, like there to block, can run, nothing's stopping that guy. And I think that was like the epitome of that hard nosed brand of football that we have kind of seen go away.
Yeah. And I don't think that's going to, I think a lot of teams are going to move away from it, but I think the fullback will always be there because it is necessary to run certain plays. And you have to, there are times you have to play hard nosed football and you need a big boy right back there to just be your lead blocker and just decimate somebody.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But while also saying that position's being eased out of the NFL, Andy Reid confirmed that the Chiefs will not have a fullback this year.
Yeah, and I think what most teams are going to do is they're not going to be drafting fullback specific players. However, they're still going to have players on their team that can play that spot there. I forgot. I think some people call him a Z bat. What many people call him different things, but there are many things you can do in the backfield with them, and I think there will be a lot of players, tight ends more specifically, that get moved back into that position.
Yeah, I think so. And we already kind of see that there is teams that use fullbacks as tight ends and tight ends as fullbacks because, they're often a similar build.
Yeah.
Guys like Adam Troutman, even with the Falcons, I think Parker Hesse as well.
Mhm.
Like different guys like that you can kind of use both as a fullback and as a tight end, but I think that the fullback position certainly adds a different dimension to an offense. You have this lead blocker, you have this hard runner, and you also have a guy that a lot of times can catch passes out of the backfield. So, yes, I get it. We're kind of in this age of it's a pass first league, of course, and the premier players are the the quarterbacks, and then the running backs are just kind of the fast guys, the elusive guys. Obviously, some of them still strong runners.
Yeah,
some
Nick
of the
Chubb,
best.
Derek Hunter,
Yeah,
Henry.
of course, but it's not that same kind of. It's not the
Yeah.
same kind of back.
Yeah, and I mean, me personally, I've always been a run first team. If you can run the ball successfully, you're going to win a football game. And I mean, you can see that even with the Chiefs having Patrick Mahomes, they've in all their Super Bowl wins, they've been able to run the ball so effectively. It opens Patrick Mahomes up to do all those his crazy, insane, freakish abilities.
Yeah, I think that it's a big part of the success of a passing offense is how good your running backs are
Yeah.
and how well you can utilize them. So, seeing that teams are just not using fullbacks kind of sucks because there is teams where they've got multiple running backs on the roster and they put them in the game at the same time, but the blocking prowess just isn't there.
Yeah.
So I think that this is just kind of part of the evolution of the offense we're seeing in football now.
Yeah, and I think I'm like I said, we're still going to see them there because it's like when the offense was evolving to being a more pass-heavy offenses that came around, the new age offense, if you may. A lot of defenses started switching to a three-man front, and they've instead of getting your big, tough, beefy linebackers that run a 7-flat 40, you have these smaller guys that can run a much quicker 40 but aren't nearly as strong and can't take on a lot of things. And you see a lot of, almost like safety-sized linebackers coming in, and then defense kind of went away. And then they found the happy medium where we have these strong, fat, really strong guys that are also quick. So I think we'll end up back in a few years going back to having a fullback position because everyone's going to catch up to the scheme of the passing and how to defend that properly. They're going to have to bring back the run being more dominant in the running game.
Yeah. We've seen air raid offenses in college football, and they historically haven't been all that successful against teams that know how to play them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we're going to see in the NFL as well. I think that, if your quarterback's going out there and they're just passing the ball, they're getting 60 attempts a game, teams are going to be able to counteract that. And I think that's going to be the problem.
Yep.
This was just something I saw, but, the age-old question, not really at all, but that question's been answered. Christian Watson is faster than Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles. In case anybody was wondering, Packers now going into a second-year wide receiver did beat Simone Biles in a race over the weekend. He actually almost tripped and ate shit at the beginning of the race, but recovered and beat Olympic gold medalist gymnast Simone Biles. So in case you were wondering, yes, he can run faster than her.
Yeah, the 4'7" has the every time she takes a step, it's like 2 inches, like
yeah, very small human being versus like a 6 foot something wide receiver.
Yeah, his stride is 7 yards, hers is 2. You should be able to win that. Come on,
you should, and it was short distance. But I do want to ask you this question because I saw this one on Reddit, and this was a good question. So NFL coach, this is a hypothetical, of course. NFL coaches should have 1 week a year where they have to be like a baseball coach and wear full uniform on the sidelines, like pads and all. What head coaches in the NFL would you like to see in full uniform?
The old ones, like Bill Belichick.
Yeah, Andy Reid.
Yeah. It'd be so funny to see these old guys just
I think Brandon Staley of the Chargers would look like every punter.
Yeah.
He would look, they'd be like somebody would look like the special teams coordinator would run over and be like, get out there, man. Like the punt team's out. And he's like, I'm your boss. Because there is some NFL head coaches that I can't even imagine seeing them in football pads.
Well, and then you'd see the ones that are just pure athletes, like Marco Ryans and Sean McVay.
Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, all of them, all these ex players just in there looking like they belong out there. It would be so funny to see.
It certainly would. I can't even get the image of Bill Belichick and Andy Reid on opposite sidelines in full uniform, helmet and everything.
Oh, that'd be. I'm just thinking about college coaches like Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Yeah. Even
he wouldn't have the
Nick Saban.
In. Yeah.
Nick Saban would look funny in his full uniform.
Nick, all because he's getting old, so
Mac
he's shrinking.
Brown. Get like the real old big
Well, then you
guys,
could have people like Kirby Smart in, and he'd get too into it, start headbutting players.
Yeah, he would.
It'd get violent.
Yeah, dude. Him and Brian Kelly would start hitting people.
Dude, you'd have like the Georgia sideline. You'd have Muschamp.
Yeah, Kirby Smart and Muschamp would just actually go out on the field and hit people. They'd be like, I'm going in the game. You're out.
Get out of here. You messed up too many times.
I bet there's been times where Kirby Smart was like, this linebacker's not doing what he needs to.
Oh,
Let me get out there.
You know there's been practice weeks. Line up against me right now. One-on-one. Oklahoma, let's do it. Just puts on a helmet.
I think Kirby's insane enough to do Oklahoma without pads.
Oh, 100%. He just gets friggin' like Nakobe, like Jordan Davis. Or, yeah, just like, hey, right now.
Yeah.
You know, he...
Yeah, Kirby Smart versus Jordan Davis.
I would put my money on Kirby.
Oh, yeah. But he can move a little bit.
Yeah, dude's insane.
Maybe let's do, let's say Trayvon Walker versus Kirby Smart. I don't know who's winning that.
That'd be a
Trayvon is huge.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that would be interesting for sure. I think Mike Norvell would look funny in pads as well. He would also look like a special teams player.
I'm just like thinking all the coaches, like Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Like, or you have like Sam Pittman, his big gut sticking out.
Ryan Day wouldn't even know how to put on the pads.
Yeah, he'd be like, everything be on backwards. He'd have like one arm through the head hole and like, how do you do this?
He would need somebody to like strap up his speed flex.
Guys, I never played. What do I do?
All right, let's run through a few MLB things, and then we'll get to top three, bottom three. This was fantastic to see. Liam Hendriks made his return to the mound less than 5 months since his first treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Came out, pitched for the White Sox, just fantastic. Like the stadium was roaring for Liam Hendriks' return, and what a fantastic story. Like, oh my God.
That's very exciting to see.
Yeah, just absolutely insane how fast he was able to come back.
Yeah.
And, like, they activated him off the IL like 2 days ago, and everybody was like, "When's he gonna start?" Like, and I'm so happy to have seen him get out on a mound because he was, going into when this all came out, he was like a top 3, top 5 closer in the MLB, and seeing him back and still chucking is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Another guy that we're familiar with, Angels prospect and former Tennessee standout Ben Joyce, was chucking in his MLB debut.
Yeah.
Holy shit. He threw 12 pitches. I think he came in for the 7th. 11 fastballs. 1 slider. I think the slider clocked at like 89, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. But 11 fastballs. Every fastball he threw was 100 plus.
Wow.
On those 12 pitches, 10 strikes. And maxed out at 102.2 miles per hour.
Wow.
So this was a pretty quick call-up as well for Ben Joyce.
Yeah,
he was pitching
10 months.
two years ago.
Yeah.
Because, he was on the Tennessee team that everybody was like, oh, shit, like they're, really making a run. Like, they went like almost undefeated.
Yeah, and then they lost in like the regionals.
Yeah, and he is already up for the Angels, and after this performance, probably going to stay there.
Oh, yeah.
Another flamethrower here, Spencer Strider, is the first pitcher this season to 100 strikeouts. I believe it's the fastest by like 0.2 innings.
Yeah, I think the fastest was DeGrom at 61 2/3.
Yeah, so
and he got it at 61.
Yeah, Spencer Strider is an anomaly.
Oh yeah,
like just an absolute freak. But in that same game, the Braves beat the Phillies 11-4. Fantastic offensive showing from the Braves, a very good recovery from the 2 straight losses, and we saw 2 home runs from Matt Olson, and quite the performance for Ronald Acuna. A triple, he went 4 for 5, 3 RBIs, just fantastic showing. I think Riley homered in that one as well. But as well as that one, the Dodgers and Rays played one hell of a series, but as it always goes, the Rays come out victorious.
Yeah, I don't know how they're insane. Don't they have like the second lowest salary cap?
Oh yeah, they've got one of the lowest salaries like in the league. They're just absolutely insane. And it was a great series, though. I think the Rays took game 1, Dodgers took game 2, and then a very close, I think 11-10 victory for the Rays in that third game on Sunday. But just so crazy. Pulling up the box score right now. Yeah, 11-10 victory, and just a fantastic series. The game winner on a home run from Isaac Paredes in the bottom of the 7th. But these two teams are crazy. The Rays 39-16, the Dodgers 32-22. Like, absolute insanity.
It's literally like one of the highest paid rosters against the lowest paid rosters.
Yeah, it is.
Like the third highest against the second lowest or something.
Yeah, and also just looking at the Rays' record at home, 26-6.
Wow.
And nobody goes to those games.
No.
That stadium's a piece of shit.
Yeah. It's not even in Tampa Bay, I don't think. It's like
no, it's
out.
in St. Petersburg, and it's on its own island.
Yeah, no wonder no one goes to the game.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for MLB. Not too much big stuff going on, but as we move in towards like July, that's when it's really going to ramp up in the MLB. But for now, let's do top 3, bottom 3. We're going to do BCS / College Football Playoff Championship games. So we're only doing 2006 and on. That's when the BCS officially became its own separate championship game. So I've got the first pick on the top 3. Brock's got the first pick on the bottom 3. I'm just going to go ahead and get my homer pick out of the way. 2014 BCS National Championship game. Florida State beats Auburn. I needed to. I can't let that one get taken.
Yeah. That was a good game. For my most favorite game I watched, there's several. And I think it's going to be I believe it was 2017 Clemson over Bama. Like last second, Hunter Renfrow in the end zone in Tampa Bay. One heck of a game.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think I'm going to go 2020 LSU beats Clemson. You know, obviously we've talked about this game at nauseum, but
such a good game though.
Oh my God.
That LSU team year was just insane.
Yeah, and Clemson was as well. Like Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence, and then
2 number 1 overall picks.
Yeah, just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, your second pick?
My second pick would have to be 2016 Bama and Clemson, where Bama won the year before. Another down to the wire, very close. Alabama comes out. I believe that's the game that put Nick Saban tied with Bear Bryant?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It was a great game. It was just great teams. Very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I think, man, I'm split between these two, and it's the same two teams matched up. But I think I got to go 2018. Alabama beats Georgia, like the overtime touchdown to Calvin Ridley. Just great, and like the Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Yeah.
Like all of that going on while Georgia is kind of reemerged as, you know, a great team in college football. Just an absolutely fantastic game to watch.
Well, yeah, you took mine. That was going to be my third one. However, I'll take the 2022 Georgia versus Bama. Georgia's first title since Herschel Walker days, 1980. Very much, and just solidified that Georgia's back. They're here. They're the top dog. And, I mean, great game. Obviously, by the end of the third quarter, we all knew Georgia was going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, just a great game altogether.
Yeah, the Keely Ringo interception to lock it up.
Oh, yeah.
Just absolutely insane, like, atmosphere in that game.
Oh, yeah.
So, Brock, you've got the first pick on the bottom 3. I'd love to hear what you've got.
I think the bottom 3, it's very obvious number 1 overall pick. Georgia versus TCU.
Yeah.
63-7 in championship. TCU had a run, whatever. I don't care. They should not have been there. They got absolutely embarrassed, demolished, and honestly, I don't see them doing too well this year.
No, they're definitely not running it back.
No.
That's for sure. But I'm going to take 2013 Alabama beats Notre Dame. Kind of another story of, like, this team shouldn't have been there. Notre Dame should not have been there.
Yeah, I believe it was 42-14.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure this was, like, Manti Te'o played in this game,
And
and he was like the star of Notre Dame.
yeah, didn't the whole thing just happen with him and the
Yeah. It's just such a weird game, and Alabama just beat the brakes off of him.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with 2021 Bama versus Ohio State, COVID year, and that Alabama offense just Ohio State's defense could not stop them. I don't think there was a single stop. And then Alabama's defense as well was really good and just shut them out. I believe the final score was like 40-something to 16, something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely insane game. Think I'm gonna go 2007, the first BCS national championship game. Florida beats Ohio State. This one was just like an absolute beatdown by Florida. Ohio State just really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Didn't have that great of a roster. They just simply made it. And certainly didn't fight for a championship.
Yeah. Speaking of a team that you would think they would do better, but I'm going to go 2019 Clemson versus Bama. Another just straight blowout. Clemson just annihilated Alabama. Alabama played a good season, had a good playoffs if I recall that year, but for some reason could not could not fit-fo it in the final game and just got blown out by Clemson.
Yeah. And then I'm going to take 2015 Ohio State beats Oregon. It was the first ever college football playoff championship game, and I feel like it just didn't quite live up to what it should have been. I think I think the semifinals were 10 times as exciting of games than the championship game that year. And like they had big names in this game, it just didn't live up to what it should have been.
Yeah. I think that year it was mainly the whole, look, a 3 and 4 seed can come through, do this, whatever. And then you get to the championship game, you're like, I'd much rather see 1 and 2. Exactly. It's just going to be a better game.
Yeah, I think that Florida State versus Alabama would have been way more entertaining.
Way more entertaining. I mean, Florida State, Ohio State would have been more entertaining. Alabama, Ohio State was more entertaining. I mean, Oregon was a good team that year. I just don't think they really had it in the end. And Florida State, of course, did choke away in that playoff. They did not seem prepared. Typical Jimbo Fisher move, though.
Truly was. But that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That was I think we both had pretty good lists there.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that we didn't take picks from each other that much.
I think only 2.
Yeah, I think only 2. So I think that was a pretty good list. I think this was a pretty good episode in general.
Oh yeah.
Brock, I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime.
Always having a fantastic time. And I want to leave the people with a fun fact here. Miami has never beaten Norman Junior College in Georgia. They played them in 1931, but Miami has never beaten them. So
they never beat South Georgia College either.
Yep.
Obviously,
they've never beaten Millsaps.
Sad.
Yep.
Or the Alabama JV team.
Correct. Yeah, in 1931 as well. They really sucked in 1931.
Wow,
they lost to Western Kentucky, South Georgia College, Norman Junior College, and the Alabama JV team.
Wow, just a rough year to be a Miami fan, I guess.
Brutal. Yeah, Miami sucks. Maybe if you guys would beat Millsaps, I'd take you seriously. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. Brock, always a pleasure. Peace.